fertilizer, which is also a fossil input. So all this simply means in the decades ahead, global supply will not keep pace with the demand growth, and that means we can expect a continued positive price trend with regard to food and agricultural commodities. The next slide depicts the agricultural treadmill that I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation. The straight dotted line represents the long-term trend in real agricultural commodity prices between 1900 and 1990. As you can see, there is a clear-cut negative trend in there. But what you can also see is that there are significant deviations of this trend over time. So there was a price peak in 1973-75. There was another one in the early 90s. And there was another price peak in 1996. And only 3 years later, we could observe historically low prices for grains and protein feed and several other agricultural commodities. So let's keep this in mind when we take a look at the future. What I've presented here is the actual price since the turn of millennium, the price of wheat, and the projected price by USDA to 2016. That was the price projection in 2006. And as you can see, there is a clear-cut positive trend in here. And I've expressed the price in dollars here because I didn't want to have to deal with the exchange rate effect. However, in order to appropriately interpret this slide, I want to make 5 comments. First one is what we can expect beyond 2016, what has been depicted here, is a modest but sustained increase in agricultural commodity prices and the price of food. And the second comment then is it won't be the exponential, the skyrocketing prices that many or that several people have been predicting. Rather, we're going to have the same situation that we had in the past, in which prices in agriculture will be characterized by significant fluctuations around this trend. And there are a number of reasons to believe that these fluctuations in prices around the long-term trend will be even more pronounced in the future than they have been in the past. And this simply, and that's the fourth comment, means that the prices that we observe on agricultural world markets are clearly above the long-term trend, the prices we are observing right now. In February, when the prices peaked for wheat, we had a price in Chicago of around $12 per barrel, per bushel. We are now down to $8. So we had 3 times or twice the trend price. So that simply means the price of wheat won't stay as high as it has been in the past. But this also means the price in the future may at one point or the other be below the long-term trend. But at any rate, prices won't come back to the levels that we have gotten used to towards the end of the last century. And of course, increasing prices and a growing volume of international agriculture markets, that's good news for producers around the world, including the European Union. However, it's bad news for consumers because they have to pay more for what they want to eat. And it's real bad news for the poor consumers in the world. And at this point, it may be worth remembering that in 1996, during the first World Food Summit, the United Nations formulated the ambitious goal of cutting in half the number of malnourished people by 2015 relative to 1995. However, we have learned that this goal is far out of reach. The opposite is happening right now. The number of malnourished people is increasing by about 4 million a year. And of course, sustained high prices of food will amplify this problem. Already today, we have more than 850 million humans who are malnourished. Those are humans who live on $1 a day or less, or the equivalent currency, They have to spend more than 70% of their income on food in order to survive. And when prices stay high for extended periods of time, then we really have a problem with world food security. Then we will see what we have seen already, food riots, and we may also see international migration away from developing countries into the rich countries, which may exceed in everything we've seen in the past. In this context, it's also worth remembering that the developing countries once were net exporters of food when it came to international trade with the rich countries. Today they are net food importers, and everything we know points into the direction that the food import gap of the poor countries in the world will dramatically increase. FAO thinks it will quintuple between 2030 and 2000. They are right, and this simply means that the food import gap of the poor countries will can only be closed through production growth in both the developing countries and the rich countries alike. The poor countries will, in the foreseeable future, not even be close to meeting their own food needs, even under the best of all realistic circumstances. And of course, as the land that is available for food production is limited, it is productivity growth that is the key to world food security. And productivity growth then, of course, is the result of human action, of intensification of land use, of land breeding, of more and better inputs, plant protection, agricultural research, teaching and extension, education, and similar activities. So everything I've said so far is essentially, or by and large, without climate change and bioenergy. Now we add climate change and bioenergy. I've long been a skeptic, but I think we have to admit that climate change is for real and climate change is man-made. But what is sometimes overlooked is that agriculture is not only the largest industry in the world in terms of employment. More than 40% of the global workforce is in agriculture. But agriculture is also the industry that contributes more than any other industry to global warming. In fact, 1/3 of global warming is the result of agricultural activities. And the biggest chunk of these 33% is 18%, which is deforestation for the purpose of claiming additional agricultural land. This, incidentally, is more than the global manufacturing industry or global transportation sector contribute to global warming. Of course, when we increase energy production, that means, at least at present technologies, increased competition for land and other producers. But what I'm saying here with regard to bioenergy is obviously also true with regard to non-food crops, be it as cotton, rubber, or oil plants, oil crops that are used for industrial purposes. At any rate, increasing bioenergy production will lead to a strong increase in world food prices, and this will amplify the problems that we're going to see with malnutrition or with world food insecurity. And of course, sustained high prices, with or without bioenergy, sustained high prices of food will increase the incentives for the poor people in poor countries to go out into the woods and burn the woods in an attempt to claim additional agricultural land in order to be able to feed their family. And this simply means two things. And that means that productivity growth is not only the key to the reduction of malnutrition, but it's also the key to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and thus global warming. So this is the theory, this is the background. Now we're going to attach some numbers to what I just said. We ran a model. I don't want to bore you with the technical details of our model that we developed, but it's a model, a multi-market model.